SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom is one of the most praised licensed games of recent years. So many people have been calling it an amazing 3D platformer, with some even declaring it a masterpiece. Really? Don't get me wrong, I remember liking it a lot when I was a kid, but I was obsessed with the character and loved everything with his face on it, so that doesn't really say much. But after hearing so many people say it's good, I've decided to revisit it. I don't think SpongeBob SquarePants needs any introduction. The show's been running for almost 20 years now, and the first 3 seasons of it are some of the best cartoons to ever appear on television. With a show as successful as that, merchandising was to be expected, and a common form of merchandising is, well, video games. The first few SpongeBob games weren't very good, but after the complete atrocity that is Revenge of the Flying Dutchman that resulted in the closure of the studio that created it, Nickelodeon partnered with Heavy Iron Studios to create the next SpongeBob game, which, as you can tell by the title of this video, was SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom.
Here we go!
The story starts as a peaceful day in Bikini Bottom, which is disrupted by another one of Plankton's attempts to steal the Krabby Patty formula. He creates an army of robots to take over Bikini Bottom, but accidentally leaves them on the Don't Obey option, which makes the robots turn against him. Meanwhile, SpongeBob and Patrick wish they had real robots to play with, so Patrick has the genius idea to use his magic wishing shell to wish for some. And yeah, you see where this is going. He gets his wish as he wakes up the next morning to find Bikini Bottom has been completely taken over by robots. So SpongeBob and the gang team up to destroy the robots and save Bikini Bottom. The story is fine for what it is, but it certainly doesn't live up to an early episode of the show. It's not that the plot itself is bad, it's the writing. You can tell the writers were huge fans of the show, but that doesn't mean they fully understood how to write good dialogue for it. It's not awful, there were quite a few dialogue exchanges that were good and earned an occasional chuckle, but as a whole, the writing isn't great.
I think I have fudge in my pants.
That's disgusting. But on a more positive note, there is a lot of visual humor and references to the show that fans of it will really appreciate. Like in Rock Bottom, when upon approaching the vending machine, you see the last bus to Bikini Bottom appear and suddenly take off.
Hey!
And in Sandy's Tree Dome, when SpongeBob gets all dried up and repeats lines from Tea at the Tree Dome. I think now would be a good time to bring up the voice acting. Heavy Iron Studios got most of the voice actors from the show, and this game really benefits from it.
I wanna play!
Patrick, we're not playing! We're fighting for our lives!
I have devised an ingenious plan to finally steal the Krabby Patty formula.
Get ready for a hot fudge twister, Texas style.
They sadly couldn't get Clancy Brown, the voice of Mr. Krabs, or Ernest Borgnine, the voice of Mermaid Man, so they instead had Joe White voice both characters. He didn't do very well for Mr. Krabs.
No more Krusty Krab means no more fry cooking for you.
But he did really bad for Mermaid Man.
Here, I found this in my sock drawer, next to a bunch of pink socks.
But besides those two, the voice acting is great and is just as good as the TV show. Okay, now on to the gameplay. There are 3 playable characters, who all move at about the same speed and have a double jump, but each of them have character-specific traits that make them play different. First up is SpongeBob. His main move is the spin attack, which can be used to defeat enemies and can even help with platforming. Along with that, he has the bubble shoes, which can stomp on things, and the bubble helmet, which launches him into the air and can smash airborne enemies. SpongeBob's the only character that gains moves as you progress. Everyone else has all their moves from the start. After you beat the first boss, you get the bubble bowling ball, which can be rolled at enemies, buttons, and those wheel things. It's a good move, but it's kind of annoying to use because when you activate it, SpongeBob slowly tiptoes forward, which makes it really hard to aim. And after you beat the second boss, you get the bubble missile, which allows you to send a missile at faraway enemies or buttons. It controls fairly well and is really useful for the more difficult areas in the later half of the game. You also get the SpongeBall power-up, which controls like garbage, and I only used it when it was necessary. After you beat the game though, you unlock the SpongeBall Arena, which is pretty fun to roll around. Next up, we got my boy Patrick. His main attack is a belly slam, which can't be used in midair, but he does have a belly flop that works similar to SpongeBob's bubble shoes. Since he's stronger than the other characters, he can pick up and throw things, which is commonly used to pick up watermelons and guide them through puzzles, but is also used to pick up and throw frozen fruit, which freezes water and allows you to reach hidden areas. You can even pick up enemies if they're stunned, which you can cause by belly flopping right next to them. And last but not least, Sandy, who's actually my favorite character to play as. Her main attack is a karate chop, but she can also kick in midair. But her best moves are with her lasso, which is used to grab and pull enemies, to grapple onto Texas icons and swing from them, and to hover like a helicopter for a few seconds. Every character is really fun to use and controls great. It comes to no surprise that SpongeBob is the most used character, and he's the only character that can be used in the hub world. To switch between characters, there are bus stops scattered around each area, but Patrick and Sandy aren't always available, which kinda sucks. And with all that said, let's get into the main game. It's your standard 3D collectathon platformer, along the lines of Banjo-Kazooie and Donkey Kong 64. You explore several areas looking for tons of different collectibles, the main one being golden spatulas, which grant access to new areas. But there are two other collectibles: shiny objects, which are abundantly scattered around each area and can be traded to Mr. Krabs for golden spatulas, and Patrick's socks, which are less abundant, but finding and returning 10 of them will earn you a golden spatula. There's a grand total of 9 areas in this game, not counting the hub world and boss fights, and each one is based off a different location from the show. The first one is Jellyfish Fields, which is a really good first level. It's very bright, colorful, and fun. Everything a first level should be. It also has the first boss, King Jellyfish, which is really easy, but it's an early game boss, so whatever. The next level is Downtown Bikini Bottom, which is another great early stage. It shows off all of Sandy's moves, and there's a ton of really fun platforming. Then Goo Lagoon, which is pretty good. The carnival is awesome, the inside of the caves are really fun to explore, and the giant sandcastle you have to climb is cool. The Connect the Towers mission was kind of annoying, but it wasn't enough to ruin the level. After you collect 15 golden spatulas, you unlock the first main boss fight, Robot Sandy, which is a really good boss that utilizes SpongeBob and Patrick's abilities very well. After you win, you gain access to the next section of the hub world, with the first level being Rock Bottom. I don't hate this level. The atmosphere is cool and I like the stealthy aspect of it, but there's too much SpongeBob, and the knockback really starts to become an issue. You get hit by the slightest thing and... Next is the Mermalair, which is a cool stage, but you have to do so many tedious things. The giant pinball was not fun and took forever, and the part where you have to press the 3 buttons as Patrick wasn't any better. But the boss at the end was pretty unique and fun to fight. Then Sand Mountain, and we haven't talked about slides yet. They are so good, and I will probably go back to this game often just to play them. They're super high speed, high action, and tons of fun, and Sand Mountain is just a level filled with them. Enough said. After you collect 40 spatulas, you unlock the next boss fight, Robot Patrick, which is okay. It was fun, but the part at the end where you have to hit his back with the bowling ball was not good. Trying to aim that thing on a conveyor belt is not easy, but his attacks are very predictable and easy to avoid. Beat him, and you unlock the rest of the hub world, with the first level being Kelp Forest. This level sucks, and is easily my least favorite in the entire game. It starts off fine, but not even halfway through you have to switch to Patrick and place 3 stone tikis on top of pressure plates. I really don't like this. It's not designed very well, and if you die you have to redo the whole thing. Having to do the same thing over and over again is so boring. And when you finally beat it, it somehow gets worse. Barnacle Boy says he needs 5 crystals to get some superpower, so you have to explore a dark cave and solve a bunch of puzzles to retrieve them. The puzzles aren't hard, they're just really time consuming. There is only one bus stop in the entire cave, which is right at the beginning, and you have to switch characters very often, meaning you'll have to do something, go back to the beginning, return to where you were, do something else, and it just sucks. And after doing all of this, Barnacle Boy says the crystals were for his nose hair trimmers. But then you get a super tough slide, which is a lot of fun. Next level is the Flying Dutchman's Graveyard. It's an okay level, there's some good platforming, but there's a lot of really annoying moments that ruin it, like the moving wall jump and those stupid puzzles with the pillars. Then you fight the Flying Dutchman at the end, which is really lame and easy. The last level is SpongeBob's Dream, where you explore the dreams of a bunch of characters. There is a great variety here. Between each person's dream, there's some pretty challenging platforming that will really test your skills. The first dream you enter is Sandy's, which is a slide, but probably my least favorite, due to the extremely loud fly-covered and the part where you go up a spiraling path for like 30 seconds, which was very boring and kind of made me dizzy. The next dream is Squidward's, which has some really awesome and tough platforming, and that's followed by Mr. Krabs' dream, which is not fun and took forever to beat. I hate the knockback. Last is Patrick's dream, and he just gives you a golden spatula. Thanks. Then, after you collect 75 golden spatulas, you can enter the Chum Bucket Lab and take on the final boss, Robot SpongeBob. Phase 1 was super easy, and Phase 2 was actually pretty tough. I beat it first try, but it came down to the wire and I was on my last piece of life. When you win, the story ends with the characters saying they still have more to do, trying to encourage the player to go for all 100 golden spatulas, but I'm not going to do that. The only reward for doing this is a remade version of the SpongeBob theme, which is a nice reward, but if I really wanted to see it, I would just look it up. After beating the final boss, you already have all the stages and the entire hub area unlocked, and you can explore Bikini Bottom freely. Speaking of Hub World, it's really cool. It's not very big, but there's so much packed into it. There's obviously the gateway to each area, but there's also familiar buildings you can enter and explore, like SpongeBob's house, Squidward's house, the Tree Dome, the Krusty Krab, the Chum Bucket, and even a movie theater that requires 40,000 shiny objects to enter. And this is why we are so thankful for the internet. When you finally get enough shiny objects to enter the theater, you get to view a slideshow of a ton of this game's concept art, which is a nice touch. It even shows the scrapped Robot Squidward boss fight. But besides the theater, there isn't really much else to do after the credits roll, except listen to the soundtrack. Heavy Iron Studios could have went the easy route and just used APM music, which the show used, but they instead went above and beyond and hired composers to create new music for this game, and as a result, the soundtrack is really good. It's all original, very memorable, and has a great variety, with each piece adding so much to the overall atmosphere of the location in which it plays. Jellyfish Fields, the Hub World, and Sand Mountain have very peaceful and joyful music. Downtown Bikini Bottom has super relaxing and calm music. Rock Bottom and the Flying Dutchman's Graveyard have very mysterious and almost creepy music. The Mermalayer and Slides have super energetic and exciting music. And the boss fights have intense and suspenseful music. There is a huge variety of great music, and I really admire Heavy Iron Studios for going the extra mile to bring us something awesome. So, is it deserving of the praise it's been getting? I think so. I don't agree it's a masterpiece, but it's a really fun 3D platformer, and anyone who's a fan of the genre, or SpongeBob, would really enjoy it. Sure, it has its flaws, but they aren't enough to make the game bad. It has tons of level variety, great music, solid controls, and is overall a pretty well-rounded game. Thank you for watching my video. If you want to stay updated, you should follow me on Twitter. I have one of those now. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. I've got tons of really cool videos coming up that you won't want to miss. Thank you again, and have a nice day.